Okay. All right. So this presentation is about the National Traffic System, the ARRL National Traffic System, and talks a little bit about radiograms and what they are and how you pass them. This presentation will be available. It's actually available now um, on the Tonto Amateur Radio Association website, which is n7tar.org. Just click on news, and there it is. And this is just a brief introduction. We could talk about this for hours. In fact, there's a link to a video at the end of this. I'm actually going to include a 5-minute excerpt from that video. It's very concise, does a good job. The rest of the video is like over an hour and answers a lot of questions. It gets into a lot of detail that you may or may not be interested in after you hear the introduction. So, follow the links in the presentation that's on the website, which is also here. This PDF will be included as well. All right. So what is the ARRL National Traffic System? It began in 1915 to pass messages, which is referred to as traffic, across the country. It is the relay in Amateur Radio Relay League, ARRL. That's the relay, is the National Traffic System. And basically it's set up to handle traffic between Canada and the U.S. and across the country, and it can go into other countries as well. We'll often get on the Arizona net. We often get traffic from this guy Peter in Germany, which will be referred to in the little snippet that I'm going to include here in a minute. There's three general areas. They're divided into 12 sections. Arizona is in section 12. They use local nets, use HF and VHF, UHF to initiate and deliver the traffic by voice and CW. Nowadays, mostly using digital, which is actually WinLink, for cross-country traffic. And the goal is to deliver a message within 24 to 36 hours of the origination. The ARRL radiogram is the primary traffic. It's very much like a telegram, and I say here, see the example, which is here. Here's an example of one. And it for those of you who are old like me, you probably remember what a telegram looks like. The reason it looks like a telegram is it was started in 1915, and the whole idea was to keep it brief. Back then, every word was 5 cents. So in today's world, you want to think of every word as $5, and you kind of get the idea. The idea is to keep a nice brief message, but this could be passed over the air rather than needing the telegraph wires. So that's how it got started, and you might ask yourself why it's still pertinent today, but we'll get into that. So brief, typically 25 words or less. May use numbered or pre-written text for common messages. I'll show you what those are. And it also supports freeform and is capable of handling ICS 213 messages. There's a very simple way to pass an ICS 213 message inside a radiogram. Radiograms during emergencies. It gets the messages out of the affected area when other options are not available or reliable. And it was used heavily during the aftermath of Hurricane Fiona in Puerto Rico. There were a lot of people who, although they mostly had water issues with Fiona, the wind wasn't the big culprit. They did lose a number of their radio stations, commercial radio stations, but a lot of the ham stations stayed up, most of them actually. And a lot of those people were set up with alternate power. They had generators or solar batteries, etc. And they were able to get stuff out because a lot of those areas, the more remote areas in Puerto Rico, didn't have power for 8 months. It was a real mess down there. So there are situations where this does make a difference. Brief demonstration will be done. Why should you care? Well, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I need to send this ARRL radiogram," and you were standing there with your foot in your mouth, going, "What the heck is a radiogram?" and you've been a ham for 20 years, that's you don't look too good. So you might want to care about that. There's other reasons why you might want to care, but whatever. A lot of times what you'll do is you'll initiate it with WinLink, or somebody else will. It'll get relayed by a voice, or it'll get initiated with voice and relayed by a WinLink. It could be either way. And then when it gets to a station near where it's going, it'll get delivered by phone. And we're going to talk about what if you want to send a radiogram. So before we get into what is a radiogram, let's pause for a minute, and we'll show this video. And let me do that right now. So I stole this, and there's a link to it, to the full video. But this is just a 5-minute snippet that does a really good job of explaining what this stuff is, better than I can do in 5 minutes. So here we go.
The NTS, the National Traffic System from ARRL, is primarily set up for U.S. and Canada-based traffic, but we can move things globally through the traffic system as a whole. So some traffic comes in from a station in Germany, Peter DL4FN, and that all moves through the traffic system from Germany all the way over to here to the U.S., and we can move things back there. Traffic moves through just any of the general modes that you would normally use on amateur radio, so voice, Morse code, the digital traffic network, DTN. If you've heard folks talking about using WinLink to move your traffic for your field day bonus points, that's essentially what's driving that is WinLink. General rules of amateur radio apply to this, so no, commercial messages or sales or, that type of thing. Although if you have some amateur radio gear that you want to, offer, you could do that because that fits within the scope of what we're allowed to do. But, no commercial messages or anything like that. And as far as moving to other countries, the same reciprocacy rules apply, just as you would for any other amateur radio operation. And if it's third-party traffic, then the third-party rules apply. Essentially, I think it's pretty much everywhere except like North Korea or a couple of things like that. And as far as third-party, there's a list of countries that'll accept third-party traffic, and that's where, let's say, I put a message into the system on behalf of a friend of mine that doesn't have an amateur radio license or something like that. So you can move traffic for folks that are not amateur radio operators, but if they're going to another country, you got to keep the third-party rules in mind. So let's talk about how a message can move through the system. We essentially start most of this at the local level or the section level. And so let me get my fancy laser pointer going. So most of the time, traffic will start at a local traffic net or a section-based traffic net. That could be a 2-meter traffic net or something similar like that. And then if it's a piece of traffic that's staying local to that area, then that traffic will never leave that net. It would get picked up there and it would get moved there and delivered from there. If it's something that's moving across the region or across the country, then that's when we start to move up into these larger regional nets or area nets, and then we can jump across to the next area's traffic nets and bring it back down until we get back into the local net level or as close as we can to that, and then a station there would pick up that traffic and attempt the local delivery there. So that makes sense. We start normally at the local levels and then we move up and cross and come back down for local delivery. We would not want it where, let's say someone in New Jersey wants to send something to here in Texas, that you wouldn't hand that traffic to another station in New Jersey and then they make the phone call to deliver it. It would move through the traffic net to come all the way here to Texas before that would happen. And hopefully that makes sense. And I see in the chat, Sean's put the link to the third-party traffic list. Thank you much. Let's keep rolling here. Here's maybe a better example of how things would work. Let's say I want to send a message to a family member in Michigan. This is real world. I've moved traffic this way, and this is how it's flowed. So first I would start by bringing that piece of traffic to my local net, and here that's the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex traffic net, and I check in and I say I have one piece of traffic that's headed to Michigan, and then the net control station will work to figure out how to route that out of here so that it makes its way to Michigan. And I'll walk through how a net control station kind of figures that mapping out later on here in the session. So the net control station identifies who I'm going to give that to. That station then relays it to someplace closer to get it closer to its destination in Michigan. In this case, it was moved over the digital traffic net to a station in Indiana. Then a station in Michigan picked that up to keep it moving towards, again, its destination there in Michigan. That again went over the digital traffic network, but things can interrupt based on the flow of how the traffic moves from one place to another. But again, in this one, it was the digital modes. That station in Michigan was then able to make that final delivery. They were actually about 5 miles-ish away from where this was going. So that's really close to get it towards its delivery point. That station then picks up the phone and makes the phone call to say, hey, I have this message for you that's come over amateur radio, and here's what the message says, and here's who it's from.
All right, the radiogram itself. Here's an example of a radiogram, and there are blank radiograms. There's a blank radiogram PDF. Actually has 2 blanks on it that you can download and print out on the presentation on the website. So it's got a very specific form, and the reason for that is to keep it as concise as possible. The idea is that you're probably in an emergency going to be handling a bunch of these, not just 1 or 2. So you want to be able to move them quickly and efficiently, but you want to, above all, they have to be accurate. So they've come up with this form. They've been using it since 1915. And it works. So it's actually pretty clever, and it's not as complicated to make out as some of the videos on YouTube will tell you. But there's a lot of them on there. If you go do a search on YouTube for a radiogram, you'll find all kinds of information. Basically, everyone has a number. You make up the number yourself. That's for you to identify it should the message come back or there's a problem with it. So what I do is I start with number 1 at the January 1st of every year, number 1, and then I just start numbering them up. If I haven't heard about that message before the end of the year, probably I'm never going to, so I'm not worried about it. But even if I did, there would be a date associated with it. So you just make that up. Then there's something called a precedence. There are different precedences. There's emergency, where you actually spell out the word emergency. And you have to handle those. You want to handle those as quickly as possible. This is a life or death situation. I can't imagine in today's world where that would come up, but you never know. I mean, you never know is why we do all of this emergency stuff, right? So there you go. All right, priority, which is a P, is urgent. If there's no emergency traffic, then you handle your, once you're done with the emergency traffic, if there is any, then you do your priority traffic. Welfare, inquiry or report as to the health or welfare of an individual in a disaster area. This example message is a welfare message, and then most of the messages that get handled are routine messages. And these days, those are mostly the ones that we send for practice. Hi, how are you? Everything's fine. Happy birthday. Welcome to amateur radio. Blah blah. All of those kinds. So then station of origin, your call sign if you're originating the message, or the one that did originate it. And an origination means that they're the ones who sat down, filled out this form, and then somehow got it out into the system, either using WinLink or via voice or CW. The check. This tells you how many words are in the message, so you can be sure that you didn't miss any. In this case, it says ARRL 5, and there's 5 word groups. All right, this is a phone number, but each of the section number of parts of the phone number count as a word group, so it's 5. The ARRL simply indicates this is a numbered text message. So what does that mean? Well, a numbered text message is one that you can look up the number ARRL 20. In this case, ARRL 20 equals a message that says temporarily stranded. Will need some assistance. Please contact me at, and then there's a blank. So in this case here, ARRL 20, that's this message here, and the blank is filled in with a phone number. So this person that's originating this, which is Kim and Jim, originating it from Tornado Alley, Oklahoma, with the help of this station, KK7ZZZ, filed this message at 13:15 Zulu on April 19. And they are trying to get that message to Andy Marconi at 123 Any Street, Phoenix, Arizona, 85032. And this is Andy's phone number. So there's the message. This is the preamble. This is the address. This is the text. That's the signature. And then you record down here. If I received this, say, from Gary Lindsay out in Claypool, I would put in here W7MIN and the date I received it and the time. If I send it to somebody, or when I send it to somebody, I might put in here KF7GC and the date and time, and that's who I send it to be sent off to delivered to Phoenix. And obviously in our case, this would be coming from someplace, and I would pick it up and I would deliver it. This part up here, this radio message received at, that's when a non-ham gives you a message to deliver. You would fill this in, and the only time you do this really is if you were going to put this in the mail for some reason. You couldn't get a hold of the person any other way, and you were going to mail it to them, or fax it, or whatever. Scan it as a PDF and email it to them. However you're going to do it. That's when you would fill this in, and that would be this would be filled in by the person who talked to Kim and Jim to get this message in the first place. All right. So that's it. The way this would be transmitted is pretty simple. You don't say number one, precedence W, HX, like this, because we all know what the format is. So this is the way that would actually be delivered. And of course, BT is break in CW. So it would literally be number 1001, welfare, Hotel X-Ray Charlie, KK7ZZZ, ARRL 5, Tornado Alley, Oklahoma, figures 1315 Zulu, April 19. Andy Marconi, I spell Mike Alpha Romeo Charlie Oscar November India, amateur call KK7YYY, 123 figures 123 Any Street, Phoenix, initials Alpha Zulu, figures 85032, figures 928 555 1212. I say again, figures 928 555 1212. Break. Now, obviously, I wouldn't go that fast because nobody can write that fast. I don't care how many times you've been doing this. You do that a lot slower. At this point here, you break in case they need any of this information. Again, they call it a fill. So let's say I was doing this by voice, and there was a lot of noise on the band, and they didn't get the time. At this point, they would come back and they say, I need a fill. And it's like, Roger, go ahead. What was the time filed? And you'd say figures 1315 Zulu. I say again, figures 1315 Zulu. And then they'd be, Roger, go ahead. All right, so now you're going to give them the message. So the message would be ARRL 20. I spell Tango Whiskey Echo November Tango Yankee, figures 123, figures 212, figures 555. Break. Kim and Jim, end no more. And at this point, you would again, if they needed a fill, which would probably be they missed a number in the phone number, they would ask for that. Otherwise, you've transmitted the whole message, and that's pretty quick to send this much information. If you think about it, even though you got to do it slow enough for the person to be able to write it down, it's pretty quick. Now, when you do this in a WinLink message, obviously it's a lot faster. And we are going to pause the video while I bring up WinLink, and then I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we've got WinLink open. We're going to create a new message. New message. We're going to use the templates. We're going to go into radiograms and our RRI forms. RRI, Radio Relay International. This is going to be message number 1001. Routine. Handling instructions, none. By the way, handling instructions, there's a bunch of them here. The Hotel X-ray A through R. They added some new ones. The most common one is G, delivery by mail or landline toll call not required. If toll call or other expense involved, cancel message and service originating station. What they mean by that is if it's going to cost you money to deliver this, don't worry about it. Just just send a message back, which is what they call servicing. Service the message back to the originating station and let them know you couldn't deliver it. There's other instructions. Collect landline delivery authorized by addressee within so many miles. That doesn't make any sense anymore, but it's still there. But back in the day, when back in as early as the 90s, toll calls were a big deal. So that was a thing. Delivery station to get reply addressee and originate message back from addressee and originate back. So if it's a Hotel X-ray Echo, that means they want a reply. So like if they're calling for help, they might say, get a reply. Let us know that when they're coming or what's going on. Hold delivery until a certain date. This is used a lot with birthday messages. They'll send it out a week ahead of time and they'll say, hey, don't send this, don't deliver this until the guy's actual birthday, so that when you're calling them on their birthday to say happy birthday, for example. Please handle as ICS 213, Hotel X-ray India. So that means, hey, this message is actually an ICS 213 message and it's embedded in the radiogram form. And here's a page that talks about how to do that. So if you go to this page, you'll see how to do it, and it's actually really simple. I can bring it up here real quick. They show an ICS message form here. So if you got this message and you had to relay it as a radiogram, it's like, okay, but it's a completely different form. How would I do that? Well, it's actually pretty simple, and they lay it out. And you simply call out the fields. So this would be Figure 1, Incident ICS 213 Test Program. Figure 2, Fred Kamir, ARRL. Down here, in the actual text of the message, you see Figure 1, ICS-213 Test Program. Figure 2, Fred, and when you are getting this as an HXI, you know that this is calling out the ICS form fields, ICS 213 form fields. So if you get an ICS 213 form in front of you, you're just filling it in. It becomes a piece of cake. It becomes automatic, really, and it's not hard to do at all. So that's what that's about. All right, back to our message. If this was a service message, you'd simply click this box here. If you weren't using WinLink, you would simply write in the letters SVC in front of the number. That's all. It's not. None of this is really rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. So let's send this to my buddy Gary, whose call sign is W7MIN. He lives in Claypool, Arizona. I don't know the zip code. I think it's that one. I don't know his phone number. Let's put in. We'll use my email address. So, actually, let's use this. So we'll go here. Now, see what it did? It said @gmail.com. That's because if you're doing this by voice, that's how you have to voice it. So it would be email techboss, I spell Tango Echo Kilo Bravo Oscar Sierra Sarah @gmail.com. No ambiguity there. You know exactly what's going on. It's piece of cake. All right. So please ignore this message. Period. Just demonstrating. if I can spell it right, 73. All right. Now, where did the periods go and what's with the X's? Please ignore this message, period. The period's indicated by initial X-ray. Just demonstrating. Initial X-ray, 7-3. If I wanted to, I could say, how are you? Question mark. Question mark gets turned into the word query. So, and this counts as a word group. So you see that went from 12 to 13 when I did the query. All right. So that's that. Who originated the message? Me. Woody and Mike. That's my call. All right. Now I want to send it. So let's see. He's in Arizona. That's region 12. I click that. If I was sending it to my son in Massachusetts, I click region 1. If I wanted to send it to Canada, I might send it through, I don't know. My guess is I'd probably go to region 8, but, somebody like that. Yeah, because they're doing British Columbia. So let's see. I want to send it to Ontario. Is Ontario in here? O-N. I don't see an O-N anywhere. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I'd send it to region 11 if I was sending it to my sister in Ontario. All right, so we got that in there. All right, submit. It didn't find any errors because it did check it. And we go back to here, and there is the message. Region 12 also goes to the archive. This is going to Claypool, Arizona 85532. This is so that when this goes into the system, they have some idea where it's going to get routed to. And there it is. This is a service message. It's 1001, because remember we checked that box, service. It's routine. KJ7YY is the originating station. The check is 13. It's from Strawberry, Arizona on July 11th. It's going to Gary Lindsay, W7MIN, Claypool, Arizona, zip code. His email address is techboss which is not, it's mine. And then BT for break. So BT is from CW land, right? So or Morse code. So you break. Remember before I said when you're voicing this, when you're reading it on voice on HF or VHF or whatever, you stop there to see if there's any fills. Same thing if it's Morse code. You stop here and then you listen to see if they're asking for any fills. You wait a couple of seconds. Most times they'll tell you to go ahead. If it's a message that's been handled a lot, he's probably not going to say that, or especially if it's an ARRL message. As long as they have this information, you just keep going. So you pause for 2-3 seconds. 3-4 seconds is what I pause for, usually about 4. And then go with the text. So please ignore this message, initial X-ray. Just demonstrating initial X-ray 73, how are you, query. Break, Woody, amateur call, Kilo, Juliet 7, Yankee, Yankee, India, and no more. And that's it. So I post that to the outbox, and next time I do a send, I would send that out. And that's that. Okay, I know I'm covering a lot of ground here real quick, but this is just an introduction. It's not meant to be in-depth and go into a million different things, but there's a bunch of resources here. If you found any of this interesting, again, this is all on the website. So you can click on these links. So the ARRL's National Traffic System has been updated recently, and it's now at nts2.arrl.org, so you can go check it out. The numbered text messages are here, so you can go see a complete list of, here's all of those text messages. See, we did 20 for one of them. Temporarily stranded, will need some assistance, please contact me at. If you were servicing it back, or here's one. Greetings on your birthday and best wishes for many to come. So instead of saying all of these words, you would simply transmit ARRL 46. Done. And there's your happy birthday. And there's all kind of messages in here. There's a lot of household safe and well. I am safe and well, 27. Help and care for evacuation of sick and injured from this location needed at once. If you were doing something with ARES, the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, which is also sponsored by ARRL. Furnish as soon as possible the weather conditions at your location. That's something you might send out if you're on a Skywarn net or something. So, I mean, they've got a lot of, these are fairly common messages that are used a lot, and that's why they do that. And then back to, okay, so a10az.net, that's the Arizona Traffic and Emergency Net. Meets every evening on 3.986 megahertz. October 15th through April 14th, it's at 5:30 p.m. And April 15th through October 14th, it's on at 7 p.m. On Wednesday nights, I'm net control for Arizona. Other nets that a lot of the members participate in, there's a Swirl 2-meter net out of Tucson. It meets on the EARS linked repeater system. There's a link to that here. There's a 75-meter interstate sideband net that meets on 3985 at 0100 Zulu. There's the New Mexico Roadrunner net. There's a Mission Trail net out of, I forget where that's out of actually. Then there's the Golden Bear Traffic net. That's in California, I believe. Utah net, the Beehive net out of Utah. There's all of these different nets. This is the Region 12 single sideband net. The idea behind these different nets is when you're transferring the message, you're trying to get it there within 24 to 36 hours, right? So you put it in your system. If your net meets at a particular time every day, and that net is set up so that after your net receives that message, it can be sent to another net, which is getting ready to meet, then it goes across the country really quickly. So originally they set these up so that it would be bing, 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 bing. And then at the end of the day, or the middle of the day, once you got from the East Coast to the West Coast, then you turn around and come back. Ding, 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 ding. And the idea was that there was traffic going both ways all the time. So that is, with the advent of WinLink and digital stuff, which is much more accurate, a lot of messages don't get screwed up as much. There's a lot less of that. Plus, this is all done by volunteers. And we all know what that means, right? So in some states, there's more volunteers than there are in other states. And some of the volunteers do more than in other volunteers and all of that. So you basically, the net managers are appointed by the section nets from the ARRL section managers. So it's their job to try to keep this all going, and for the most part, they're doing a pretty good job. So you can listen in on an A10 net. If you don't have time to, or the ability to check out the Arizona Traffic and Emergency Net, for example, I've got a recording of one here that I did in February 14, 2024. And you can go in and you can listen to that net. It's 12 minutes long. We did a training tip. We did roll call. We passed 3 messages, and we were out of there in 12 minutes. So and that's a fairly common occurrence because this is a very efficient method for doing this. There's a really good introductory video here by that guy who makes those J-pole antennas, KB9VR, KB9. Who is it? Let's go see.
Today on Ham Radio Q&A, do you want to make a quick 100?
KB9
No,
VVR.
I mean 200.
So he's got excellent. He's got an excellent video, and I actually embedded it in the web page. And the excerpt of that video that I showed you, the full video is here. So I want to give him credit for doing that. That's the gentleman out of Texas. He does a lot of stuff about the National Traffic System. And so all of this info's on there, and that's the end of the video. So for those of you that are viewing this live at the Tonto Amateur Radio Association meeting on July 2024, we will now take questions.